How would you like it if Nazi Germany ruled the world? Or if North Korea's dictatorial regime took over? Texts like Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale and Alan Moore's V for Vendetta explore ideas like this in what is called the genre of speculative fiction. Speculative fiction dives into the world of make-believe, where what-ifs become reality in their fictional worlds and influence our perspectives on the harm of such power and authority on society. Dystopian novels and films are a subgenre of speculative fiction and express an imaginary world where an authoritarian government or individual runs the country, often sacrificing identity for unity. But how do Atwood and Moore sway our perception of these themes? And how does their context relate to their writing? Within The Handmaid's Tale, we observe and follow the main character, Offred, and her psychological journey and battle against Gilead's new societal norms. Gilead attempts to oppress women's autonomy, and due to the rapidly declining fertility rates in the US, make them nothing but two-legged wombs. Atwood's context and beliefs in authority are clearly expressed through The Handmaid's Tale, and we can observe her analysis and critique of each system throughout. The immediate location of Gilead is Cambridge, Massachusetts, where Harvard is often alluded to within the text. This is due to Atwood often spending time at Widener Library, quote, where I had spent many hours in the stacks, researching my New England ancestors as well as the Salem witchcraft trials, end quote, as quoted from her intro to the 2017 vintage edition novel. Within this introduction, we discover that her time in West Berlin during the war had an effect on the novel's settings and characters as well. Titles such as Commander and the use of military to take over what was once Cambridge and make it Gilead. Within Gilead, Atwood explores the key idea of autonomy and how a psyche is affected by harsh authoritarian rule, especially one that desires full control over its women and their rights to individuality. We observe Gilead's oppressive regime and Offred and the handmaid's defiance against the oppression, which goes to show how identity is something that cannot be taken away from human nature. Let's take an example from chapter 27. Gilead does not allow words on store signs, but the handmaids disregard this attempt to control their autonomy and create names, or lingo, which stays between themselves. This defiance of Gilead's regime is the handmaid's resistance to the authoritarian rule, and this is something that reoccurs multiple times. Despite this, some handmaids are caught breaking the rules and are sent to either exile or even death. This theme directly correlates with Moore's V for Vendetta, as the main character Evie is confronted with a similar situation to Offred. Great Britain is taken over by High Chancellor Adam Sutler, whose character is highly influenced by Adolf Hitler. Evie experiences major oppression from the men in power, from her own bosses to fingermen who are supposed to protect her. However, in Moore's novel, authoritarian rule is not quite as strict. It does not force women into particular roles or have the need for fertility. Society in Northfire restricts its people to the same routine day by day, not allowing any individuality and using fear within its regime to keep people in line, which both texts share. Atwood and Moore also use the power of literature against the people in the novel, as both regimes refuse the allowal of free literacy to keep free thinking away from the population. A prime example of individual identity would be within our own school, a uniform policy but people deny it. Lumen as a school provides a very disciplined system, great yet strict teachers, and a uniform policy that shines light on its refined reputation. But despite this and Lumen's attempts at controlling the uniform of its students, there will always be some that refuse to wear it correctly. Although Lumen is not nearly as strict as an authoritarian society, the thought is still there. Lumen has policies, but its students have individual identity and defy the school rules. Through Moore's novel, his own context can be understood. Moore lived both Thatcherism and the Cold War, and he alludes to many historical events throughout the novel, such as Thatcherism, the Cold War, Guy Fawkes and the Gunpowder Plot, and the AIDS epidemic. Moore also hints to Adolf Hitler's reign of Germany, further deepening the meaning of characters and the reality of the situation. Quote, "People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people." End quote. As quoted from V, reminds us of the reality of a dystopian society. No matter what, there are always people who will disagree and take action. This also delves into their perspective of power. The government only holds true power if their people allows it. Otherwise, they are bound to revolt and end its reign. Speculative fiction allows us to peek into a world where life could have been different. A world where we didn't have the comfort of our homes or the right to individuality. Novels such as Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale and Moore's V for Vendetta provide us insight into their context and what they believe through those experiences, and their audience reflects the message behind the story. These authors present different perspectives on power, authority, and identity, and the allusions to historical events further implement their views to not make the same mistakes twice. Thank you for listening.